Sahana Bhavatu, Sahana Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavahai, Tejasvinavaditamastu, Ma Vinvishavahai, Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Welcome everyone to our Zoom satsang. We're continuing on our journey through the mind. We started this a few satsangs ago. Started with a short explanation of the 5 states of mind, and then we've been looking the last few satsangs in more depth at the subconscious mind and specifically how to reprogram it. In other words, the subconscious mind works based upon habit, and some of the habits it has are good ones and others aren't good ones. So reprogramming the subconscious mind or remolding the subconscious mind is changing its form. It's like you're remolding a piece of clay, improving it, making it more refined. One of the basic points we've made every time is that many individuals simply accept that their habit patterns are who they are. For example, the statement that I am an angry person, there's nothing I can do about it, it's just the way I am, is the way some people think. But of course, that's just a habit. It's not really who they are the soul. It's a subconscious habit, a way of reacting to situations, and it can be changed over time. Habits take time to change, so we have to work at it consistently. It's like building a muscle. You can't build a muscle in a week. You have to work at it consistently for a few years, every day, every week, and then it gets stronger. So same with the subconscious. As we mentioned, there's a number of ways of reprogramming the subconscious, and we started with character building, changing our character qualities, strengthening our weak character qualities by working on them one at a time with the character building workbook as a tool there. 1 second here, I'm going to do something. I'm going to click the turn on original sound button. Okay, I clicked on the turn on original sound button. Second way of reprogramming the subconscious we looked at was by performing Vasanada Tantra, and of course that's clearing the mind of emotional reactions from the distant past. And the idea, it's like taking a drawing that's been colored and taking the color out of it. The drawing, the black and white drawing, is the memory, and the colors are all the emotions associated with it. So we're not trying to erase the memory, we're just trying to take out the negative emotion that the memory brings up in our mind, which is very disturbing and can be gotten rid of through Vasanada Tantra. The major vasanas, the major emotional experiences of the past, can take more than one writing down and burning. Third way to reprogram the subconscious mind is what we did last time, the use of affirmations. And in Gurudeva's approach to affirmations, by repeating positive statements on a regular basis, we can improve our self-concept, make greater progress on the spiritual path, and in general increase our magnetism to success. 3 ways that affirmation benefits us. In other words, it's not just for success, it's just not to help things go better for us in the world. It's also for making spiritual progress. It's also just to improve our self-concept if it's a bit more seriously negative. Now we're ready for some new material. We have a question and accompanying testimony that's been emailed in, and you're all welcome to do that. This one starts, I wonder if we could have an upadesha on the power of sadhana for remolding the subconscious. My own experience is that when consistently performed, you are able to access the sub-superconscious more easily, which I experience as my own intuition. I think it may also help you sustain good habits in other aspects of your life, such as exercise, appropriate appetite, frugality, and sleeping early. Essentially regulating the subconscious when it tries to rebel by optimizing your own willpower. So that's a very good point and leads right into our presentation today, which is on sadhana and remolding the subconscious mind in that way. So we're going to share the screen. There we go, we are sharing. Presentation is in two parts. First part's from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, and don't worry, it's not the really esoteric stuff. It's just the basics about yoga, restraining mental activities, and being successful in meditation, and the two elements being successful in meditation requires. So as we know, Patanjali defines yoga in verse 2. Yoga is the restraint of mental activities. Most individuals who talk to me about their efforts to restrain mental activities have difficulty accomplishing this. And fortunately, Patanjali gives very clear suggestions on how to succeed. The restraint of these mental activities is achieved through practice and dispassion. Notice 2 points, practice and dispassion. If the question was asked, how do we make progress in restraining mental activities? A common answer given would be practice. In other words, that's an idea that many people have in mind, that you have to practice regularly in order to make progress in meditation. That is a little slow. This verse is pointing out that in addition to practice, the other important component is dispassion. In other words, the reason many of these mental activities are occurring is because of our attraction towards someone or something. The mind, when it wanders during meditation, quite often it's because it has an attachment to someone or something that hasn't really been resolved very well. The subsequent verses further elucidate. Practice is the exertion to achieve steadiness in the state of restraint. But this practice becomes firmly grounded only after it has been cultivated uninterruptedly and with devotion for a long time. Which is our point. Any of these ways of reprogramming the subconscious mind take time, take consistency. We can't do an affirmation once every 2 months and have it work. We can't do Vasanada Tantra twice a year and have it work. The practices have to be done regularly and for some time in order to have an effect. Dispassion is the knowledge of mastery of one who was without thirst for objects that are seen or heard about. The supreme state of dispassion is the non-thirsting for the gunas, which arises from the perception of the Purusha. So the terminology there may be unclear. Gunas in Patanjali's terminology is another term for the world. The world has the qualities of the three gunas, so for some reason he calls it the gunas. Purusha just means our soul. So said another way, when we experience our soul nature, it's very satisfying. There's a certain joy that we experience, and that takes away the mad quest for trying to experience that through the world, people and possessions in the world, which, of course, you get happiness for a while and then it doesn't last, whereas the Purusha provides us with a enduring happiness. Clearly, the expectation that success in meditation will come quickly is incorrect. Not only does practice need to be for a long time, but done without interruption and with devotion. As to dispassion, it increases through attenuating the kleshas of ignorance, attraction, aversion, through the regular religious practice of Kriya Yoga, which we don't have time to explain that one in depth. One reason practice needs to be done for a long time is that a changing of the subconscious mind is involved, and the subconscious changes slowly. This involves the concept of samskaras. So we all know what samskaras are. Samskaras are imprints left on the subconscious mind by experience from this or previous lives. Gurudev explains it this way. All actions, reactions, and pranic patterns from one life carry forward into the next, but in condensed or seed form as tendencies. He says it another way as well. We are the sum total at any point in time of all our past lives. So there's no point in exploring our past lives because we're the sum total of them right now. Every past life is within us as a tendency. Swami Shivananda, Divine Life Society founder, has a charming way of explaining this. All samskaras lie dormant in the citta as latent activities, not only of this life, but of all previous innumerable lives. He then gives an analogy for the condensing process. As a merchant closing the year's ledger and opening a new one does not enter in the new all the items of the old, but only its balances, so does the spirit hand over to the new brain his judgments on the experiences of a life that is closed, the conclusions to which he has come, the decisions to which he has arrived. This is the stock handed on to the new life, the mental furniture for the new dwelling, a real memory. Samskaras are also activators, constantly propelling consciousness into action. In this regard, they are described as subliminal activators, meaning we're not necessarily conscious of them. Patanjali says, restraint transformation is when the externalizing samskaras are subjugated by the appearance of restraint samskaras. These emerge in the mind at the moment of restraint. A tranquil flow of consciousness is produced by these restraint samskaras. So in other words, whenever we harness our thoughts in meditation, which is restraint, we're generating new samskaras which subjugate the externalizing ones. We're creating impressions in the mind that help the externalizing impressions lessen. So restraint samskaras influence the mind to be without mental activity and therefore remain in a tranquil state. And that takes time for these restraint samskaras to really change the externalizing samskaras, which is the tendency to think about people and projects. Another source of samskara transformation from externalizing in worldly to internalizing in spiritual is from mystical insights that come through deeper meditation. The scope of this mystical insight is distinct from the insight gained from scripture and inference owing to its particular purposiveness. That's a hard word to pronounce, purposiveness. One more verse on that. The samskara born from that mystical insight obstruct the other samskaras. So that's the idea of intuition. The second way of changing the externalizing samskaras is having an intuition, something coming to us from the sub-superconscious mind. That in itself changes the subconscious. Gurudeva comments on changing the subconscious. After the subconscious mind has been very, very carefully reprogrammed into the contemplative lifestyle, there is little difference to us between the subconscious and the superconscious intuitional states. Therefore, basically, we have moved our awareness into an entirely new mind structure, or at least it seems new to us. This is called the sub-superconscious mind, or the area of the superconscious that has a subconscious which is connected with the physical body functions and everyday life affairs. In other words, the subconscious is really remolded to the max, shall we say, when it becomes sub-superconscious. We've gotten rid of all the negative vasanas, self-doubts, externalizing samskaras, character quality issues, and it becomes a totally different creature. At least it seems that way to us, as Gurudeva says, because the change is so major. Gurudeva says, the sub-superconscious state is the total man functioning at a higher vibratory rate than he did when in the instinctive intellectual area. What is the sub-superconscious mind? It is the subconscious of the devotee well programmed in the contemplative life. That means character qualities are natural to us. This devotee can work with himself and move awareness freely through any area of the mind that he wants to, consciously, without being hindered by habit patterns and reactionary conditions of the past, which were programmed in the subconscious for him by parents, school teachers, friends, and the public in general as he came along through life from birth. So we've gotten rid of those by Vasanada Tantra and affirmation. The last quote from Gurudeva relates quite well with the question and testimony I read earlier at the beginning. So to remind us all, I'll read it again and you can see the relationships. In other words, Gurudeva is saying here the subconscious becomes the sub-superconscious and intuition is functioning in our everyday life. So this is the testimony in question. Again, I wonder if we could have an upadesha on the power of sadhana for remolding the subconscious. My own experience is that when consistently performed, you are able to access the sub-superconscious more easily, which I experience as my own intuition. I think that it may also help you sustain good habits in other aspects of your life, such as exercise, appropriate appetite, frugality, and sleeping early. Essentially regulating the subconscious when it tries to rebel by optimizing your own willpower. So that's correct. Basically, we're gaining easier and easier access to our sub-superconscious. So to remind us the difference between the superconscious and the sub-superconscious, sub-superconscious takes a little time. It's like a computer with an older computer with a slow chip trying to do something with graphics. Takes a while. Though for many individuals, they think about what they're trying to solve at night, go to sleep, wake up in the morning, and the answer's there in the morning. That's the ideal. And it took that long for the sub-superconscious to generate the answer. It's a bit slow. Whereas the superconscious is immediate. As Gurudeva says, you ask a question and the answer is attached to the end of the question. That's the superconscious. It's just immediate. You have a thought, you wonder about something, and the answer is there immediately. That's how you can tell the difference. Moving on to a new point. Next series of slides explains in more detail what Gurudeva's use of the term sadhana encompasses. In other words, he uses it in a very specific way, which these slides explain. Sorry. Something happened there, and we go there, and we go there. Oh, this next part, the slides explain the concept of sadhana and the performance of a daily vigil, drawn from the Master Course Trilogy. Our Himalayan Academy lexicon defines sadhana as effective means of attainment, self-effort, spiritual discipline, the way. Religious or spiritual disciplines such as puja, yoga, meditation, japa, fasting, and austerity. The idea of achieving an attainment is an important aspect of the concept of sadhana. In other words, it is not referring to an occasional spiritual practice, but rather one that is done regularly. So in a general sense, sadhana just means spiritual practice, but it really means one that's done regularly. Therefore, sadhana can also be described as a steady and persevering practice of a method or exercise prescribed for spiritual ends. The term sadhana marga, coined by Yoga Swami, conveys the nature of the seriousness of the practice of sadhana. The lexicon defines sadhana marga as a path of intense effort, spiritual discipline, and consistent inner transformation, as opposed to theoretical and intellectual learning. The effect of sadhana is the building of willpower, which was in the testimony, and the building of faith and confidence in oneself. That's the idea of improving our self-concept, and faith and confidence in God, gods, and Guru. Sadhana harnesses and transmutes the instinctive intellectual nature, allowing progressive spiritual unfoldment into the superconscious realizations and innate abilities of the soul. Gurudeva explains how the daily vigil relates to sadhana. So this is the important point that we're leading up to. Gurudeva ties vigil and sadhana together. To give sadhana a place in your life, you must establish a daily vigil, and that's Gurudeva. It doesn't say you should, you can, he says you must. Very direct. So if you want to do sadhana, you need a daily vigil. Period. The ideal time is early in the morning, just after bathing, before you start to think about the activities of the day and your various responsibilities and plans. So that's ideal. In other words, thinking about the activities of the day and your various responsibilities and plans is you've turned the intellect on in a major way. And if you try and do your vigil after that, then you have to take time to turn it off. You may not be able to turn it off. So therefore, it's better to do the vigil before you turn it on by intensive thinking about the activities of the day. So I like to say you get up, you take a shower, you have a cup of coffee, and then you do your vigil. Very simple. A vigil held at the same time every day is an excellent way to budget the necessary time for sadhana in our busy modern times. I know individuals who try and do a daily vigil and they do it at different times, and that makes it much harder to be consistent. If your daily schedule at all allows you to do it at the same time, then it's much better to do it at the same time, because it's easier to sustain it on a regular basis and not miss it. Oh, here is the traditional pattern. Each day, hundreds of millions of Hindus awaken for the last fifth of the night. That means early morning. Bathe, don fresh clothing, apply sectarian marks called tilaka, and sit in a clean, quiet place for religious disciplines. Facing east or north, the devotional puja rites of bhakti yoga are performed. Hatha yoga, hymn singing, japa, and chanting are often included. Then follows scriptural study and meditation, listening to the sound current and contemplating the moon-like inner light. The duly initiated practiced advanced yogas, but only as directed by their guru. Through the day, karma yoga, selfless religious service, is performed at every opportunity. Besides these yogas of doing, Hindus practice the central yoga of being, living a joyful, positive, harmonious life. Oh, that's our slides. We will unshare. To summarize, we gave a fourth way of reprogramming, remolding the subconscious mind, which is holding a daily sadhana vigil, in which puja is performed and a meditation done for remolding the subconscious mind. As a result, the ability to go within in meditation is slowly increased, and access to the superconscious mind again is slowly increased. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Om.